thing is I wasn't trying to be funny at all, but with that introduction, you just expect, hey, he's going to do something funny. So, no, I'm not. I got nothing.
Sorry.
No, I appreciate it. My dad and I never really saw eye to eye. That is not a pun. I swear to God, that's not a pun. I was thinking when I came up here, with the eye patch, if I say that, if that comes out my mouth, people might think that's a pun, and now they think it's a pun. When I was growing up, the things I was interested in, he let me know in gentle and strong ways, and a lot of you guys will be familiar with this, that they weren't really that important, my interests. At the end of the day, it was time to knuckle down and get down to the real business. And what he thought was the real business, which is kind of, the more math, science, academic side of things. I was more an artsy guy. I wasn't really inspired by that, and I wasn't really great at it, and I never was going to be. So every day, I felt a little bit more embarrassed and a little bit dumber about the things that I liked. I felt a little bit more ashamed. And every day, I felt a little bit more inadequate because I failed to live up to what he wanted me to be. I mean, there's a couple of geniuses out there, but I don't know how many 11-year-olds have a subscription to Popular Science. I had one. And so when he left when I was 11 years old, I knew why he left, because he had tried for 11 years, but I wasn't what he wanted. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't able to provide him. I'd failed. But I came up with this great plan. And I think our brother Donald Trump might have come up with the same plan. I thought to myself, if I can get rich enough, and if I can get famous enough, and if I can get successful enough, then every time my dad called me every weekend from America, which is where he moved back to, I'm a Cork boy, as much as I may not sound it, he left his accent, he took everything else. If I could get successful at what I'm doing, at the only stuff that maybe I can do a little bit good, then maybe every time I talk to him on the phone on the weekend, then he won't sound so sad. I didn't want him to feel like he'd failed as a father, that I wanted to feel like he loved me. And so I started working, and I got some great jobs. I was the head of a network for IGN.com, a big entertainment website in California. I was an editor for a magazine in Chicago. I was a TV presenter for RTE, the main network here in Ireland. I had my own TV show from a British broadcaster, Dolphin Television. And the more money I got, and the more successful I got, and the more people stopped me on the street and wanted my autograph, the worse I felt. Because I felt like I was an imposter. I am not smart, I am not talented, I am not someone to look up to. My opinion is worthless, and you're coming to me asking for an autograph, or you want to know who I am. I'm nobody, you're wasting your time. Stay away from me. So if you ask anybody, ask the guys at RTE, ask some of the guys in Dolphin, ask the guys at WOW Magazine. I was a pain in the ass. I destroyed my relationships. I got a divorce because I did not listen to my wife. I looked at her and I told her who I wanted her to be. I never listened to who she was. I was thinking about that today, and I sent her an email. She had so much to offer, and I didn't take her up on any of it. Because I was stuck in what I thought she should be. Well, I did this. I worked by day, I drank by night, because the last thing I wanted to do was hang out with a loser like me. So I worked and I drank, and 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 I worked harder, and I drank harder, and I worked harder, and I drank harder, and then one day I broke. And I quit my job. That was the IGN one, and the head of the network of the thing said, "Why are you leaving?" And I said, I can't function anymore. That was all I had. I didn't know why. I just couldn't get up in the morning and do it anymore. And I went over to I came back to Ireland. I went out to my mother's place in West Cork. I went out to the caravan out the back of the house. I laid down on the bed, looked at the ceiling next to the slugs, and I just stopped. I stopped being alive. And it was only a matter of time before the body followed, where the mind had already gone. And then one day I got this phone call. You see, I got this phone call from a wrestling promoter up in Dublin, and he was starting this new wrestling school, and he wanted me to be the coach. And I didn't want to be the coach because I suck, I'm useless, and I'm no good, and my opinion means nothing, so why would I be a teacher? Because everything I say will be stuff that people shouldn't hear because I have no value, I have no instinct. Why would you want that? But he was a good promoter. He convinced me because I was the most qualified guy. I'd been trained at this great wrestling facility that I was sent up to by the magazine up in Canada, the Heart Wrestling Dungeon. And so he convinced me that it'd be in everybody's best interest if I did it, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to be good enough to do it, I just knew I wasn't. So I walked in the first day, and I looked out, and I saw a sea of eyes, not unlike what I'm looking at right now, of young boys, some as young as 12. I looked down, and I realized that I was standing in my dad's shoes, and I was looking at myself 30, 40 times over. And I dropped out of school. Well, not technically dropped out. Technically I got expelled from 2 classes and failed my college exams. That's the technical side of it. But now I was ready to go to school. So every day I went into that class and I studied. Every day I defy you to find one person who came through 4 years of wrestling training who learned more than I did being the coach in that school. And I looked at those kids, and every day I went in and I tried to figure out what would I feel like if I was in that position, if I want to help them out with something, if I communicate this way. And I screwed up a lot, including Mike McGrath-Bryan, who's one of the organizers here tonight. You heard his speech 2 people ago. Mike might remember there was a class, he used to do some pro wrestling training under me, and there was a class, and one day I said something, and I heard my dad's words come out my mouth, and about a minute later, in front of the class, I stopped, and I said, "Everybody can have your attention, please." That was wrong. Mike, I'm sorry. I was telling you who I am, not letting you be who you are. I want to know who you are. And so when I was invited to do this talk tonight, I had to think about what I learned during the 4 years I was coaching, and it boiled down to 2 things for me. One is to speak your truth, because the truth is that my dad loves me every bit as much as I love him, and he needs my acceptance every bit as much as I need his. The truth is, his daddy left him when he was a couple of years old, and he never wrote, he never called, he never came back. My dad was teaching me. He grew up an only child, a single parent, a beautiful lady, but a very damning... She was a woman who, she gave me a book one time when I was a little boy, and on the inside it said, "This book was stolen from," and then it gave my name and my address. She was a very paranoid lady. My dad was teaching me how to survive the way that he was taught, and that's what we all do. There's 7.5 billion people on this earth, and I don't know if you ever noticed this, but we've all got exactly the same goal. The goal is to love one another, is to connect with one another, is to grow. That is how we got here over these billions of years, or however many it's been. I ain't a scientist. I think I proved that one a couple of times. The only thing that divides us, is the way we're taught to do that. Every war and every argument is about, this is my way of loving and helping the world get better. This is my way of loving and helping the world get better. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're going to destroy the world. You're going to destroy the world. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. They're just saying, I love you, and they're confused because the other person has a different version of it. So the second thing I learned, apart from speaking your truth, is to listen. Because I never listened. That's why I had terrible relationships with everybody I worked with in so many companies. That's why I got divorced and drove away my wife and so many good people out of my life over the years. Because I didn't listen. I didn't sit down while I was next to somebody, put my own subjective experience aside, look at them and say, this person has a completely different education. Whether it's a 1-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 50-year-old, this person has a completely different background. And if I listen to this person, if I study this person, if I ask the questions and the follow-up questions, and I take my own biased crap out of it, I'm going to learn something. I'm going to give them the chance to feel the godliness that they have. Because each of us, the atoms flowing through our bodies, man, they're the same atoms have been. I don't know if you noticed this, but a wise man once said energy cannot be created or destroyed. I think it might have been Kermit the Frog. The important part is that it's the same cells that have been running around since the dinosaur times. Or 300 years ago if you're religious. I don't care, whatever you believe. I'm into it. It's cool. I accept it. I dig it. I'm right there. A couple of years ago I had to have eye surgery. Probably a good thing I had to take a break, a little time out. Wound up taking a couple of years in and out of hospital. I had a bunch of eye surgeries for glaucoma, and by the time I got out, I was really anxious to get back working again. I was still running, and I decided to move to London. This was 2013, and I knew what would happen when I told my dad. I knew. So I waited as long as I possibly could. At the end of the day, I made the phone call. At some point, he'd noticed that my phone number had changed, and he'd ask why, so I had to tell him. I told him I'm moving to London, I'm interested in getting another job in media and playing some guitar, and he responded, I don't remember the words, but the words don't really matter. It's not the words, it's the vibe. You ever notice that? Some people can say the nicest thing in the world, and you know what they really mean is they don't like you, and other people can say the worst thing in the world, and they mean I love you. Well, my daddy, what he did, he started talking, and that tone came in, that tone that said, you can't do this. This isn't smart. You haven't thought this through. You're going to get hurt. You're going to fail. He told me that because I was born legally blind, that I couldn't do pro wrestling. I could not do it. I was not even that I was forbidden, but I was physically incapable of doing it. And if I hadn't done that, I would not be here. We've each got our own path. And so he started talking like this, and then 2 or 3 lines in, it was like an out-of-body experience. I was looking down upon myself, and I saw myself say, stop. And I told him my truth for the first time. I stopped letting him dictate our relationship after 30-something years. And I said, you got 2 choices here. You can criticize me, you can pull apart my plans, you can tear me down, you can worry, and all that's going to do is it's going to mean that, like so many years in the past, I'm not going to talk to you for a very long time because I cannot handle having that kind of negativity if I'm going to do something as big as try to move to London. Or option 2, you can ask me a couple of questions. You can ask me why I'm moving. You can ask me what my plans are. You can make suggestions, but love and accept what I choose to do. Do it because you're being helpful, not because you're trying to stop me. I said, what do you want to do? Because either way, I'm moving to London. He then proceeded to give me the best pep talk I've ever gotten in my entire life. I would have been 32 years old at this time, and he told me stuff about things I'd done, about places I'd been, and none of it had anything to do with money, none of it had anything to do with job titles. It's all the little things, the little family things, the little interactions, with pick up a kid or you give something to somebody. And I never even saw myself that way. He made me feel like I could do anything in the world. There are 7.5 billion people on this earth, and we all want the same thing. We just want to feel accepted, and we want to feel that we're helping out. We are all role models. You don't need to be a teacher to be a role model. Most of what I learned from my students. We're all role models. Everything you think, everything you say, everything you do, you affect everybody around you. Being a role model is a huge amount of power. What are you going to do with it? Keep going.